Welcome back to Flash Briefing February. It is day 3, and today we're going to be speaking all about how Flash Briefings work. My name's Suze Cooper. I am a journalist and a broadcaster technology for various companies, including Standard, who provide news for Google Assistant over in the US, and also Vixen Labs, which is a company over in Shoreditch, which works with brands and businesses to create voice experiences. And I'm here today again with my partner in voice, Peter Stewart.
Absolutely. So I too am a broadcast journalist, been working in and around radio for, more years, frankly, than I care to remember, but not enough to give me a nice enough pension to leave at the moment. And as well as working in radio and a little bit of TV as well, I've also written extensively several books on radio and TV production. So when smart speakers came along and skills and flash briefings, I thought to myself, there's an idea here to get into, because this is joining several of my passions about radio, about content, about production, about creativity, and also a little bit of tech as well. And Suze, we'll come to the tech about how flash briefings work in a few moments' time. But tech also is something you're interested in, is it? You are a bit of a self-proclaimed kind of a techie geek yourself. You're really interested in voice and skills and all this.
Exactly, and that's actually what got me into this as well. It was the techie side of it. I just wasn't satisfied with owning a smart speaker. As a broadcaster, I had to work out how I could get my voice coming out of it, and that's what started me on the journey of flash briefings, really. And flash briefings are these MP3 files. Everybody knows about these audio files, little compressed MP3 files that basically you record yourself and then upload to a podcast host, and that is how you get your flash briefing to work onto the smart speaker. So it all sounds a little bit technical, but it really isn't, is it, Peter? It's just about choosing a provider so that you've got somewhere for the Alexa dashboard to pull your content from.
Absolutely. Now, you could actually put all of your audio for flash briefings on your own website. A lot of people have got their own website at the moment. But you know what? Actually, to be quite honest, that's more trouble than it's worth, because it does take a bit of tech and a bit of know-how and quite a bit of time to make sure that your audio is going to be in the right place that Alexa can retrieve it. You've also got to check things like bandwidth as well. And you know what? For the small price of a podcast host, it's much easier just to upload it to a system which has already been worked out. It's tried and tested, and if there is a problem, you don't have to sweat it out yourself and go onto Mr. Google to work out what it is you've gone wrong. You just send an instant message to somebody at the podcast host company, and they'll sort it out for you or tell you where you are going wrong. Suze, we're not talking about much money for these podcast hosts, are we?
No, I mean, there's usually for looking at kind of 10, maybe a maximum of £10 and dollars kind of equivalent, really. It's really not a massive investment to be doing this. And a lot of the podcast hosts will have these deals whereby if you sign up for a year, you get a certain amount of discount off them as well. Certainly there are others that are giving discounts for people that are setting up flash briefings, because it's a new thing. And these podcast hosts wants to get in there, and they want people to be uploading this daily content using their platform. So, it is worth looking about at the different podcast hosts that are available. I know podcasters agonize over who to go with because there seem to be so many of them online. But, it is kind of as simple as kind of picking one of them. And what you're essentially doing is uploading your audio files to that podcast host, and that they're then giving you basically a URL to an RSS feed. And that URL is just copied and pasted across into the Alexa dashboard. And it's as easy as copy and paste. You point Amazon in the right direction of where you're uploading your files. It takes care of the rest. You schedule them to go out each day, and it basically pulls the latest file from that podcast host address each day. So it really does take the hard work and the legwork out of getting your audio out there and onto the speaker. And as Peter says, while you could put it onto your own website, that's also very memory heavy. It's something that might slow down your site, which wouldn't help you in Google terms, being searched for and all that kind of thing. So it really is worth just having a little look out there and seeing what the podcast hosts are offering, and signing up and getting going.
And we're going to be talking about how to choose the best podcast host a little bit later on this month as Flash Briefing February continues, because we're here to give you the skill set, the mindset and the marketing so you can build a better briefing. And amongst those features, if you're thinking to yourself, well, I really would like the idea of all this content being somewhere that I can kind of access it. And so it is on my page. Yeah, what you can do is you can upload the content to your podcast host and then have it all on a page there, so you can have people pointed to hear all of your flash briefings going back the last week, month, year, whatever, all in one place. It's still available for you. Something else which is interesting, which is worth mentioning just before we finish today, we've talked several times about a podcast host. So just to say again, we've said it a couple of times over the last couple of 3 days, your flash briefing audio is essentially a short podcast. It's only up to 10 minutes. Sweet spot, as Suze said a couple of days ago, is probably going to be, well, I would say, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, kind of absolute tops. And where else would you be hosting this than a podcast host? So there is no such thing as a kind of flash briefing host, but they go by the generic name of a podcast host. So, sometimes the terms flash briefing and podcast are a little bit interchangeable. A flash briefing can be a podcast, but a podcast can't be a flash briefing necessarily, because if a podcast is more than 10 minutes, it just can't exist as a flash briefing in the Alexa platform. So hopefully you've kind of got your head around that. And tomorrow we're going to be back with day 4 of Flash Briefing February, and we're going to be talking a few tech tips for you. However, I would say, and I'm sure Suze is going to back me up on this just before we go, you don't need to shell out a whole stack of cash. It's not too much money. We're talking about only a small amount of money, maybe 10, 15 quid or dollars or euro a month for your podcast host. And frankly, not too much more than that for a bit of kit that you're going to be using time and time again for the next few days, weeks, months and years as your flash briefing becomes a success. But we'll talk about tech tomorrow as Flash Briefing February continues. Until then, bye-bye for now.